This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Gary Smith.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. We've got a very special guest, one of the most accomplished trial lawyers in the country, Pete Flowers, and it's always a delight to talk to another trial lawyer and get his thoughts and ideas. One of the cases that I had first read about with Pete was a case involving an NFL player and having publicly struggled against the NFL on behalf of my client and having resolved that case and several other NFL cases. That intrigued me and obviously caught my attention. You describe for the audience that case, would you, Pete? Because you were in the weeds on it.
Sure. So it was a great guy, a guy named Chris Maragos. So he's basically a self-made man. Walked on in college playing football at Central Michigan, decided he wants to transfer to Wisconsin, walks on to Wisconsin, becomes the team captain, essentially walks on in the NFL. He's undrafted, becomes the top special teams player in the NFL. This guy's just, a guy that you celebrate. And he plays for the Eagles. He turns out to be the team captain in the year they won the Super Bowl, 2018 season. So he gets hurt midway through the season on Thursday Night Football. And two of the doctors that took care of him did the wrong surgery, essentially. And he had a serious injury, but one he would have recovered from. Instead, ends up getting advanced arthritis and has had a knee replacement since the trial. Long and short of it is we ended up suing the Pittsburgh Steelers team doctor and the Eagles team doctors, all for how they treated him. And they really didn't treat him as a patient. They treated him like he was an employee of the Eagles and tried to force him back on the field. And luckily, a jury in Philadelphia agreed with us and awarded him $43.5 million for this disaster. And it's sad.
Wow. How did you get a Philadelphia jury when you're suing the Steelers? I mean, that to me is fascinating.
Well, so we were suing the Steelers team doctors, not the Steelers themselves, but the other defendant in the case was in Philadelphia. So we were able to finagle our way into Philadelphia, and I guarantee you the Pittsburgh's team doctor did not want to be in Philadelphia.
I was going to say, talk about enemy territory, right? I went to college right outside of Philly, and during the heyday there. Well, the first heyday, they now got the sports heyday in the 70s, and the rivalry was real.
It's funny. The jury looked at him when he announced himself as the Steelers team doctor. You saw some angry people in the jury right off the bat. It was quite entertaining.
That was one of the great things about going to sporting events in Philadelphia is they were not exactly reticent with their emotion when they didn't like a rival.
Not at all.
And, the other cases that I've heard a lot about are these pressure cooker cases. Can you talk to me about that? Because this is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and this is something really probably a lot of your listeners have. So pressure cookers are a great invention. They allow you to cook something at incredible pressure, incredible temperature, so you can control how it's cooked, even better than an oven. But the problem is there's been millions upon millions and millions that are made, and they have a defect. When you have a pressure cooker, it pressurizes to massive PSI, and the water inside is super hot. So all the devices are all made similar. They're made to not allow you open the top when there's still pressure. But these devices, because of certain defects, and they're all made in Korea and China, allow you to you think it's depressurized, you open it, and you got 220 degree temperature contents spilling all over you. We have literally hundreds of clients that have suffered third degree burns on their face, wrists, hands, chests. It's terrible. And there are tens of millions of these in the United States.
We've got one in the kitchen, right, where I'm doing it. I mean, that's frightening to me. How do you determine what's a good one, what's a bad one, whether there's a defect? Is there any way to?
Yeah. Well, some have been recalled, so you can look at your model and type it into Google and see if it's been recalled. Then you'll know for sure. But honestly, when I got involved in this, my wife had one. And I came home the day we discovered the problem and said, we're throwing that thing out. And I wasn't even sure if it was defective. They're all essentially made the same, though. They're very, very dangerous to use, even the ones that work and the pressure's held inside properly. I would suggest to most people you should use it to make yogurt, but you shouldn't use it to make much of anything else.
Okay, I appreciate that. So how did you, tell me a little bit about how you got into this. What did I always ask this question. It was what my father used to teach me to ask a girl when I first met her. What does your father do? So I'm going to ask you, what did your father do?
My father was not a lawyer. I had no lawyers in my family. My father was in human resources for a gas company. And, a very good person, very passionate person. I got into being a lawyer. I actually thought I wanted to be a tax attorney. And then I started doing in Illinois here, we're able to try cases when you're in law school. You get a specific license and you can go try cases, from divorce cases to some minor criminal cases. And as you know, Mark, becomes more of a passion than a job. Once you get this bug is not going away. And it lives within you and wants to come out all the time. So I started doing defense work.
The definition of every time you think you're going to get out, you go back in, because it's the ultimate addiction.
It's the Godfather statement. Exactly. Yeah, it is the ultimate addiction. You love this. And as you know, this job, there are super highs and super lows. A lot of times it's not in the middle. It's the highs and lows that you're on. You're either on a high or a low. So it's a fascinating job. And honestly, the other thing, as you know, is this is a job that's disappearing in the United States to a degree. There's less trial lawyers and there's less trials. It's dangerous.
I often will, the listeners will have heard this for over 10 years, but I've said federal trials are almost non-existent. I mean, you can, federal criminal trials, other than the public defenders, the federal public defender, who are outstanding lawyers, the number of practitioners out there who actually try federal criminal trials it's almost non-existent. I mean, I can name them, and civil federal trials. There's that's also a disappearing breed. I mean, to get past 12b-6 and to get past the motion for summary judgment, which a lot of the judiciary have started to use as their calendar management tool, it's virtually impossible to get to trial.
It's true. The people that you represent are typically people that, don't have funds to force their way into the court system. The court system needs to be there for them, and they need experienced lawyers. I'm worried in, 15, 20 years, how many trial lawyers are going to actually be existent that are doing a lot of this work, because there's just not a lot of trials, period.
I agree with you. I mean, I've got a case right now that I've talked about before that's gone up and down in the Eighth Circuit, and now we're set for trial at the end of this month. And it's just, I can't imagine that in a generation from now somebody would ever take the case. I mean, it's a civil rights case. It's qualified immunity is in play and the whole bit. And you have a similar problem when you're trying to get these things over the various hurdles that have been constructed. I think I hate to say it, but unless there's a fundamental shift, I don't see the work of the trial lawyer as being something that's going to survive into the next generation, unless there's some kind of a shift.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, it's disconcerting.
Hey, everybody, what's up? It's Gina Grad. And when you're searching for the perfect piece of jewelry, it can be hard to find a brand you trust. Alex and Ani has been creating meaningful jewelry for over 20 years, designing pieces that connect you with all of life's important moments. With an emphasis on value, there is truly something for everyone. They've recently launched their everyday collection, I could not love it more. These pieces are made from stainless steel and an advanced water-resistant plating method that doesn't tarnish. It has the look of real gold. It's beautiful. I love these pieces because they feel so classic, but they have so much versatility. Alex and Ani are also featuring some gorgeous pieces that I have right here, like Black Lotus, this gorgeous Black Lotus charm necklace, and their Stay Wild pendant, and their Wings of Protection necklace that have a classic and vintage feel. See that? And of course, you can't forget their signature bangle bracelets, which I'm also wearing. And I have a lot of their stuff. I have the numerology bracelets. I have the hula dancer to commemorate a meaningful trip I took to Hawaii. From classic to bold statement pieces, Alex and Ani makes it easy to sprinkle your personality into each piece or make a truly meaningful gift for someone you care about. Meanwhile, you can take comfort in knowing that you're shopping with a socially conscious brand, as Alex and Ani has donated over $60 million to nonprofits worldwide, connecting fashion and philanthropy in an easy, fun, affordable way. Right now, Alex and Ani is offering our audience 20% off. So check their gorgeous collection out at alexandani.com and use the promo code MIDAS. That's MEIDAS at alexandani.com. Use that promo code at checkout for 20% off your order. Come and get something beautiful.
Well, and one of the great things about it, you can speak to this. People often talk about saving democracy in various ways. But to my mind, the one thing in the Constitution, and it's in the amendments, is the right to a jury trial, including in civil. People often kind of focus on the right to a jury trial criminally, but there's a right next to the criminal right is the right to a civil trial, jury trial. Well, and by the way, that's what distinguishes us from every other so-called nation, right? And that's when people are talking about democracy and where is democracy going, that is the bedrock, right?
That is 100% it. I've done cases in Mexico and Canada as well, and in Europe. And when you see what a civil trial is there, it's not what we know as a civil trial. Mostly the voiceless people don't have a court voice in those countries. Even Canada, which we consider
right. We consider Canada our it's USA light or something like that.
Yeah. And their civil justice system is horrible. So this really does set us apart and is supposed to make the little guy equal with the big guy. Or at least have a chance to be equal with the big guy. And we're losing that. We're losing it quickly.
Yeah, and it's interesting that in this age of populism and the very kind of rubric and rhetoric that surrounds the populist message is at the same time voiced in a large part by the same people who want to eliminate this. It's a schizophrenic kind of position to take. Right?
It is exactly. That's the best way to put it. Schizophrenic.
It is very schizophrenic, and I don't understand it except that I give credit to the side that's trying to dismantle the justice system, that they've hijacked the message, and they've kind of, like the pressure cooker case. The first thing I would think of is, that old saw about the McDonald's hot coffee, right? And
right.
Somebody spilled hot coffee. It got $400,000. And, that was kind of the world that was out there. They don't tell you that the scalding caused third-degree burns, and that there was vaginal reconstruction, and that there was all kinds of other things, and that actually wasn't that much money and barely covered the medical expenses, because that would ruin the narrative.
Right. Nor would they tell you in any of these things that all those reasons that coffee was that hot, that these pressure cookers are made, is to make more money for companies at versus making sure that the public's safe. That's right. The big thing.
Right. And we're not talking about substantial monies to correct the thing. When you have, because I've listened to the experts, when you hear them testify and they break it down, it's not that more expensive to be compliant, to be safe.
No, it never is. That's the sad part. But that's part of our issue with capitalism, though, is we're constantly in search of the dollar, raising the stock price, and these companies consistently choose that over public safety. So it's a fundamental problem.
So I'm gonna take a slight turn here. I told you I would throw you something. I am fascinated by this motion that was filed. How closely are you following the Trump criminal cases?
I am.
I would figure, okay, see, I assumed that because I don't know a single real trial lawyer who isn't fascinated by this stuff. So you can be as anti-Trump as you want. And speaking of the NFL, I was at odds, during the time he was calling, get that son of a bitch off the field and the whole bit. And I could be anti him. But I say that at the same time, when they filed the motion down in Georgia, alleging that the special prosecutor that was hired was in a romantic relationship with Fani Willis and had been paid $700,000 and filed for divorce the day after he was hired by Fani Willis, and is now asking for a recusal and a dismissal. And everything about that, I won't tell you what I think. I'll just say
I actually want to hear what you think first, because I've read about a lot about it. I've followed it. There was a bunch of newspaper articles on it today as well, this morning. So tell me what you think about that.
I have had a case in Los Angeles many years ago where the company that was alleging counterfeiting against my client actually had hired the company's investigator to prosecute the case, put him in front of the grand jury. When we discovered that, we did a motion to recuse the DA's office, which was granted, then followed up by a motion to dismiss. All of it was upheld on appeal. I do not see how this judge in Georgia, I'll say a big if there is, and I'm guessing there is, I can't imagine that this lawyer would have filed this motion unless she had seen the divorce file before it was sealed, because apparently the divorce file was sealed after she had access to it, and it was done in some kind of a surreptitious way. And if that divorce file had the receipts, so to speak, that showed the timeline, the fact that he filed for divorce the day after. By the way, in my history of criminal defense, ex-spouses and ex-employees are what will always trip you up. If she's got the receipts, the lawyer for Roman, who is the co-defendant, I don't know how this judge doesn't grant a recusal motion, and then I don't know how this case survives that.
I 100% agree, and I think there's no way you'd make these accusations unless you had damning proof of it. And my God, assuming this actually happened, it's shocking. Absolutely shocking.
I keep saying this. I have these arguments. I'm in LA, which is the bastion of blue. I mean, maybe you are right next to me with Cook County, but and I tell this to people. I say every bone in my body is chilled if this is true. The idea that somehow you can hire your lover without disclosing that, and then you can go on lavish vacations with him while this guy, and then the guy files for the divorce the day after. I wonder, how do you feel like you're so impervious to any scrutiny on this? How did you think you were going to keep this quiet? Mind you, it's reminiscent. There was a case in Texas where a bankruptcy judge was with Jackson Walker, which is a large firm that had started a cottage industry of basically bringing bankruptcy cases down there to this district in Texas. And the Jackson Walker partner never revealed that she was living with and shacked up with the bankruptcy judge. And they were just hosing people left and right down there.
And now they're trying to take back all their fees that they were paid. And the judge obviously left before he was investigated by the ethics committee.
As soon as the Fifth Circuit said, "What the hell's going on here?" This guy resigned in a heartbeat. So
But
if
but
that's the case,
yeah, it's so shocking to think that she would be that naive to life to think that this wouldn't be discovered. Plus, honestly, this is a case that needed to be brought by some of the best people you could. Because if the allegations against Trump are true, I mean, it goes right to the heart of our Constitution. So
exactly what I'm saying. If what the indictment says is true, then she has inserted a poison pill in this that I don't know how they come back from.
I know, as we both know, even if they survive, at this level, the appellate court's going to take a hard look at that, and then the Supreme Court will take a hard look at that. I just don't see that one of those courts don't bounce the entire case. Yeah, so,
I agree.
It's the complete opposite to what she was planning on doing. The end result is going to be just fuel on a fire.
Well, everybody who talks about everybody who touches Trump dies, or goes on. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. We had on a wonderful lawyer. I don't know if you know him, Gary. Was it Scott Grubman?
Yes, I believe that was his name.
Who was Kenneth Chesebro's lawyer, who pled, who was a Democratic lawyer who got dragged into this. I'll be interested to see if he and Sidney Powell now come back and do a motion to set aside their pleas. I mean, this is going to have enormous ramifications. It also derails. This case is never going to get done prior to the election, and when you combine that with everything else that's going on with the D.C. case and the fact that Judge Cannon has kind of put the classified docs case, denied the special counsel's motion. I mean, people can make fun of Trump's lawyers all they want, but he has, whether intentionally or strategically or not, he's set off stink bombs in every single one of these cases.
Everyone, and he couldn't get any luckier than to have this fact scenario. You couldn't write a book and make this up. That you're indicting the ex-president of the United States, and then you have this elaborate thing going on behind alleged closed doors. It's insane. It really is.
And the irony is that the last case standing is also of supposedly an extramarital relationship, Stormy Daniels up in New York. And he's going to be pointing out that, Fani Willis, it's okay for Fani, but it's not okay for me. I mean, it's just the irony is delicious.
It is.
Pete, I appreciate you getting up, taping this with me, and we will bring you back and have a further discussion as well.
Terrific. Hey, thanks for all the good work you do. You represent a lot of folks that, otherwise probably couldn't find a lawyer. So I feel honored to be on your show and to talk with you.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt Podcast.